What's up everyone, David here. Welcome back to another mixing course. This one is gonna be female-fronted alternative rock in the style of Paramore, Julia Wolf, Violent Vira. We're gonna break down the mix for an absolutely cool song called Stuck on Goodbyes by artist Vira. You're gonna learn how to get those modern, punchy, powerful drums, massive and controlled bass sound, super wide, gut-wrenching guitars, and crystal clear yet gritty female vocals with a lot of ear candies, and how to glue all of this together. And of course, we're going to see all the settings for the plugin and the hardware, but most important, the thought process, the why behind every move. Parts of this course are going to be available for everyone on YouTube, but you can buy the full course at the website mixpresstv.com. In there, you can also find all the other mix and mastering courses available. Without further ado, let's start. So this was a fairly low track count mix. We have, I think, only 34 audio tracks, but don't be fooled. Because of that, every element has to sound huge. That's the challenge of this mix. And that's just the first challenge. The second is we have powerful guitars, massive bass. We need the drums to snap. We need the vocals very, very clear. And because it's alternative rock, we have a lot of automation, both macro automation and micro automation on both volumes and plugins. And actually, I think some hardware too. So the first thing, of course, is to listen to the final product. All right, so I hope you like the mix. This was actually the master. The master measures about a little short of -6 LUFS, so it's loud, it's definitely loud. I didn't push the mix to oblivion, we all agree we didn't need to do that. But one thing to notice for this mix right away, you can see it from the waveform. This is the master, obviously, which has some limiting and some clipping, but this is the mix. And for this mix, I actually printed it harder than I print usually my mixes, because this song in particular benefited from clipping my AD+, which is the converter that I printed the mix with. I actually did experiment with a Burl B2. We actually did a test and we all agreed that we liked, for this song, the AD+ better, so that was the converter. And because this converter in particular clips very well, it's so very forgiving. On some material you can clip like 3-4 dBs, and it's completely transparent. That's one of the reasons I love it so much. But so you can see that the mix itself was still dynamic, but it had about a dB point 2 of clipping in the highest peaks at times, just for an artistic choice. As usual, we'll start with the drum. Now, I had complete freedom for this song. The client said, do your thing, feel free to change drums if you feel like it. I gave you the guitars with the sound that we like, but I gave you the DI as well. In fact, I did change the sound of the guitar. I didn't deviate too much from what was the original sound, but you will hear it. I did a little bit of additional production, we can say. But the song was recorded extremely well. Pretty simple, which is what the genre calls for, and I think it's very well written. I love the song. I loved working on the song. So we start with a kick. We have one single kick drum, and I'm gonna start though by taking everything off the tubas so that we can hear the raw sounds. I'm also gonna take off whatever I have on the drum bus, hardware-wise especially, and so we can listen to the kick drum by itself, which sounded like this. And with my processing, we go from that to this. Okay, pretty massive difference. The kick drum was one of the elements that even in the rough mix, even in the demo, was very featured, right? And again, we have only 3 instruments: drums, bass, guitars. That's it. There's no synths, there's a couple of additional guitars, but there's no other instruments. So like I said at the beginning, everything needed to sound huge. And because not everything can sound huge at the same time, you will see, and you start to see it right here, automation on the kick. This mix is all about automation. It's all about who takes the spotlight at a given moment. Because otherwise, if you push everything to 11 from beginning to end, that's not gonna work. So the key is to interpret the mix and to make sure that the guitars come out when they have to come out. The bass is featured at a given moment. The vocals takes over. The kick drum is present when it has to be. The snare snaps the right way. So you will see there's a lot of movement. But let's see how we got to this kick sound. As usual, we have Console 1 as the first plugin. You can see filters, a little bit of EQ, a couple of dB of 50, 60 hertz, 58 hertz, a little bit of high mid-range, and a little bit of top end. So we kind of smiley face the kick drum, okay? Just a little bit of SSL compression. By the way, for the entire mix, I think I used all SSL channel on every single channel. I don't think I changed everything because that's kind of the style that I like for this genre. 5 drive, and we go from this. Okay, this alone already shapes the kind of kick drum that we want. There's no major cuts in the mid-range, nothing like that. I have the Mother preamp, which adds that little clickiness at the top, which always help. You can see compression is barely tapping it. That's because we have a hardware compressor. We have the Wolf from IGS as a main compressor, and it comes out right after because, as you can see, I have a Kick X, which is my parallel kick, which we're gonna see later. Both the kick and the kick X, so the parallel, go to the kick sound bus. And here I have the IGS Wolf as a main compressor. Let's see what it's doing. This compressor has a major role in shaping the sound of the kick and the dynamics and how hard it punches. That is exactly why I selected this compressor, because it gives me the feeling that the kick drum was played harder, okay? So I don't have the transformer engaged. You can see the attack, my release for ratio, and this is without. I want you to pay attention to a very important thing, which is something that I chase on this genre pretty much every time. I want the tennis ball click of the kick. So it's not too high and too bright and too extended like a metal kick drum. It's not too round like a pop or some other softer genres. It's the perfect combination. That's why I love so much working on this genre. It's this tennis ball type of clickiness on the bass. This compressor gives me exactly that. Let's hear it again. It's more a feeling than a difference in tone, right? it feels like it hits harder, and it's got this, I call it tennis ball kind of feeling, which is this particular sound that I like. Next, after the compression, I have the SSL EQ, which is still my favorite for kick and snare. So let's see the settings. SSL 611, I'm in black mode, shelve at the top, bell at the bottom. What am I doing here? Again, I'm reshaping the kick drum to give it more of a smiley face, okay? I absolutely love the bottom end of the SSL and the top end as well. So we are giving a little bit of top, little bit of high mid-range, and a little bit of bottom end, like really deep low end, okay? So this is without. Okay, more openness, more bottom end, and just the sound and the grittiness of the SSL really makes that kind of standard sound for this genre. So if I bypass both of them, okay, brighter, more bottom end. Another processing for me, which is pretty much standard on kick drum, is the good old lo-fi DigiDesign, which adds, again, that aggressiveness to kicks. Just 0.3 distortion, nothing else is touched. Notice how it makes it even more extended at the bottom and still clean. I absolutely love this plugin. You can't replace it with anything else. And then after that, I wanted this, usually when you see me doing EQ and then some processing like lo-fi and adding an extra EQ after, it's because when everything goes in the mix and I go on with the mix and I add guitars and I add bass, I feel I need a little more something. And usually with kick drums, it's top end, and you can see I use the Mixwave Pultec, and actually I use this because my Pultec, the real one, is unfortunately in the shop, so I use this one, which is amazing. Just adding a little bit of 2K. Notice again, I'm not adding the super high extended 10, 12K top end, but I'm adding the, again, tennis ball range. This is just a little more. Okay, again, it's almost imperceptible within the, when you listen to the kick drum by itself, but in the mix, it makes a difference. It allows me to not have to push the kick drum too high in volume and still catch it, you know, with the big bass and the big guitars. K-clip, just to control the level. Okay, we just catch sporadic high peaks, 1.6, maybe 2 at the top, but the kick is pretty consistent, so it's pretty much that. Then I have a parallel kick, which is very common for me to do parallels on kick and snare, and I usually want two things. I want either more snap or more sustain. And more often than not is more snap, especially when we have a wall of guitars, right? So for this one, my favorite has always been and will probably always be the Soft-Tube Dynamite Absolute killer plugin for kick and snare. I can actually solo this because I'm sending the kick pre-fader, right? And this is how it sounds. Okay? So it kind of chokes the low end and it gives me just the clickiness. And this is basically a fader that I can ride to add this extra snap when I need it. In fact, you can clearly see here the automation on the parallel, which goes away on the verses. So on the verses, I'm taking this parallel out completely. Okay, so it cools down in the verses. This is our kick drum. We have processing on the drum bus, which is, let's see if we don't have anything on the console one, but we do have the API, which only has half a dB at 40 Hertz. I'll show you that later when we went through the entire drum. And after the API, there's the fatso, but I'll show you the settings of this later, but I want you to hear the kick drum with and without these. So this is without. So a little more bottom end, and we clearly hear the fatso pushing more with the saturation, right? But it will make more sense, this insert, when we hear the full drum. Snare. I had an original snare, which is this. Okay, very ringy snare. I love the sound, but I felt like I needed a lot more. And so I added two samples. One is from my personal collection, and it sounds like this. Kind of almost electronic beer keg, big fat snare added to it, and then samples that I got from Superior Drummer 3, which is more woody. Okay, so we have the original sound, the added big sample, and the Superior Drummer sample to it. Okay, so we kind of fill up the entire spectrum. We have the bottom end, we have the snap, and we have the ringiness, okay? There's some processing on them. So the first one is console 1 for the original snare. And again, we got filters, no saturation, just a little bit of drive, all SSL here again. And then a little bit of body around 300 and a big boost in shelf around 10K, okay? Because it was a little dark. And I have no compression on it. So just the EQ here and the filters. Okay, it's a bold move, but it really makes the top end shine and makes it more open, and it gives you more power with that 270 boost in the low mids. We don't have anything on the sample EQ wise other than the compressor, so I can actually solo this without the compression and with. Notice that I volume compensated, so it's just a little bit of control, just a little bit, slightly more attack and a little bit of drive. Then we have the third sample, which was Superior Drummer 3, which does have EQ because it was too bright. And you can see my filter is a 7K. So I really got rid of all those snares and the top end that samples had. A little bit of cut around 1K, drive and compression. So this is the sample without it. And these are all our three snares together. Without console 1. With it. Right? They are a little more tight with the three console ones. We have a parallel snare again. All three snares go to the parallel, and we have dynamite again. And it's just a little bit, like you can see, is a minus 13, 14 dB, just to add again a little snap. Okay, this adds both the snap, and then it brings up a little bit the tail, just a little more spicy. Three snares plus the parallel go to the snare sum. We have console 1 in there with a little more processing, no EQ, just a little more compression and a little drive. So this is without. Okay, the SSL compressor gives a little more snap, just sculpts a little more the envelope of the snare. And then the brick wall HD to control the level. And gain a little headroom. Now, one important thing about the snare is the reverb. The reverb is a big part of the snare sound for this genre in general, for the song in particular, because we want the ringing hanger type of sound for the snare and also for the drum in general, but the snare really is what needs to shine and have that big ringy reverb. For this one I used LX480. Plate room is about 1.3 seconds, and you notice my pre-delay. My pre-delay is a 40. So I really want that snap to be separated from the reverb. I don't want the reverb to eat my carefully carved snap on the snare, okay? So I think I did some EQ after this, removing some resonance around 150 here and removing 8K because it was getting a little too bright, and then just a filter. So we can hear without the EQ, this is how it sounds. You hear it's a little too splashy, and it's got a little too ringy here. With the EQ, it's a little tighter, okay? Now, it sounds like a lot of reverb, and it is a lot of reverb, but in the mix, you kind of lose it a little bit. And then I have a trim just for automation. And you can see again that the level of the reverb changes dramatically. In the high energy part, it's full unity, but in the verses, it goes away. And notice another thing. My samples also go down in level in the verses. And you see, and then it goes back up and slightly ramps up in the second one. So changes and movement, that's what we said at the beginning, okay? So this is a big difference between the high energy intro, I'm gonna put the kick in, you have the consistency of the sound, but it's so much lower in energy and snappiness and level, okay? And if you're on YouTube and the video ends here, you can buy the full course on the website mixplustv.com. It's out now, along with all the other mix and mastering courses. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like. Comment down below. Let me know if you have questions. You can also access this course and all the other courses by becoming a MixPlusTV member, and you can access the entire library of in-depth mixing and mastering videos here on YouTube. If you want to support the channel, please consider using the super thanks or grab some merch. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.